Imagine a nation caught between chaos and hope, a people searching for leadership, a voice calling out in the wilderness, and a young boy destined to change history. 1 Samuel isn't just a story of kings and battles, it's about God's faithfulness, human failure, and the tension between our ambition and divine purpose. In this video, we'll explore 1 Samuel, uncovering the rise of Samuel the prophet, the struggles of Saul, and the beginnings of David, the man after God's own heart. By the end, you'll see how these ancient events still speak to leadership, faith, and our choices today. Overview. 1 Samuel bridges a pivotal moment in Israel's history. The people transition from the time of judges, where leadership was local, fragmented, and often chaotic, to a monarchy, with kings chosen by God and anointed by prophets. It's a story of contrasts, obedience versus rebellion, divine guidance versus human ambition, humility versus pride. The narrative begins with Hannah, a woman deeply longing for a child, whose heartfelt prayer in Shiloh leads to the birth of Samuel. Samuel's life illustrates the power of calling and dedication. He grows up in the temple under Eli's mentorship, hearing God's voice when others cannot. "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening," becomes a defining line, reminding us that attentiveness to God shapes destiny. As Samuel matures, Israel faces external threats from the Philistines and internal unrest. The people, fearful and impatient, demand a king like other nations, despite Samuel's warnings that a human king carries both authority and consequences. This sets the stage for Saul, Israel's first king. Tall, handsome, and initially humble, Saul represents the allure of human leadership, but his story quickly becomes a cautionary tale about pride, disobedience, and the dangers of putting self before God. Historical and social setting. 1 Samuel reflects a society at a crossroads. Israel's tribal system, guided by judges, was failing to provide security and unity. Philistine threats were real, pressing, and constant. People longed for a strong, centralized leader to unite them, reflecting the universal tension between human desire for control and God's sovereign plan. Prophets like Samuel were crucial in this context. They were mediators between God and the people, calling Israel back to faithfulness while offering guidance on leadership, justice, and morality. When Saul disobeys, Samuel's rebuke reminds us that true leadership is rooted in obedience, not appearance or popularity. Key themes in 1 Samuel. God's sovereignty and human leadership. Leadership is a gift from God, not just a human achievement. Saul's initial promise shows potential, but God emphasizes heart over appearance, for the Lord sees not as man sees, man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. Faithfulness versus rebellion. Obedience is rewarded, while disobedience brings consequences. Saul's failure to fully carry out God's commands demonstrates how pride and compromise can unravel potential. The power of prayer and devotion. Hannah's prayer and Samuel's attentive listening highlight the spiritual discipline of seeking God earnestly. Personal devotion influences the course of history. The rise of a godly leader. David, introduced later in the book, embodies humility, courage, and a heart aligned with God. His anointing foreshadows that true leadership is built on character and faith, not just strength or popularity. Divine timing and patience. God's plans unfold with patience. Samuel grows slowly into his prophetic role, Saul's reign rises and falls, and David's path to kingship is long and tested. Timing is in God's hands, not ours. Consequences of fear and impatience. Israel's demand for a king shows how fear can drive unwise decisions. Trusting God's timing and guidance is always preferable to following the crowd. Key verses in 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel 1 verses 27 to 28, Hannah's prayer shows faith and dedication. "I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me my petition." 1 Samuel 3 verse 10, Samuel responds to God's call, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." 1 Samuel 8 verse 7, God warns about the demand for a king, "They have not rejected you, but they have rejected me." 1 Samuel 15 verse 22, obedience over sacrifice, "To obey is better than sacrifice." 1 Samuel 16 verse 7, God judges the heart, not outward appearance. 1 Samuel 17 verse 45, David faces Goliath with faith, "The battle is the Lord's." 1 Samuel 24 verse 12, David spares Saul, "The Lord will repay every man for his righteousness and his faithfulness." Relevance today. 1 Samuel speaks to anyone navigating leadership, faith, or difficult choices. It reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, impatience can lead to regret, and obedience and integrity shape lasting influence. Like Israel, we are tempted to seek quick solutions, but God's plans unfold with patience, and true leadership begins with character and heart alignment. We also see the enduring value of listening, whether through prayer, reflection, or counsel. Samuel's attentiveness to God and David's faith-filled courage are models for how we approach our own challenges. Closing thought. 1 Samuel is more than a history of kings and battles. It's a story about the tension between human ambition and divine guidance, between fear and faith. When life feels uncertain or leadership daunting, it reminds us to listen carefully, act faithfully, and trust that God's plan, though sometimes slow, is always perfect.